Okay, so pass this stuff around. Here's we're going to go on the same topic, but offline rather than online. And what we're talking about here for a few minutes, oh, that's what I was looking for, those catalogs. I don't have enough of these to go around either, but just kind of be glancing as I talk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have one at least per group of tables. So just kind of pass those around. Let me steal that. Okay, here's what we're talking about. Off of internet for a second, and we'll go back to it. But let's talk about direct mail. Okay? And here's the thing. So let's say I paid $5 for a click. And I've got it where I can convert at, let's say, 20% to an appointment, and then or to opt-in, 20% to an appointment, and of the appointments, I ultimately get 50% to enroll. Okay? Anybody not believe that those are fairly reasonable, fairly conservative numbers? Okay? So, at $5 a click, I now have $25 per opt-in, right? Is that right? And then I have times 5, $125 per appointment. And now I have $250 per enrollment. And let me assume that my enrollment is $497 to enroll, $247 a month. That's our Mile High Karate pricing for this year. Okay? So under those assumptions, every enrollment that I do, I'm getting $247 positive cash flow month 1. Would everybody agree with that simple math? Okay? And under these numbers, how much ultimately would I be willing to pay for an enrollment with this pricing? Let's make the other assumption. Let's make the assumption that we're at less than 5% a month attrition. Forget about upgrades and all that stuff. But let's say 20 months. So now I'm round it down, let's say $5,000. So a student is worth $5,000. Would I be willing to pay $1,000? In other words, go $500 in the hole in order to get a new student? Yes, because now by month 3 I'm at even. Does that make sense? So at month 3 I'm even, so I pay $1,000, I get 5, ultimately I get 4,000 plus. My return on investment is, what is that? It's 5 times, so I get a 500% return on investment in the first year, right? Stock market right now is returning what, 4%? Savings accounts are 0.4%. So would you be willing to invest and get 500% annually as a return? Is everybody under? Each one of those enrollments at Master obviously is $3,500 that they're actually signing for you. If you can't keep somebody for a year to pay that. Yeah. We don't. Make sure you use the mic. Yeah.
We don't want them just to do that. We want them to pay the $497 a month.
Yeah.
For the leadership program and put $750 down.
Right. Yeah, and that's the next level. But is that making sense to everybody? So part of what I didn't get to much earlier on the marketing is one of the reasons why people think that advertising doesn't work is they have unrealistic expectations. Okay? I'll talk to school owners and they'll say, well, I'll never do Valpak again. I'll say, well, what do you mean? They said, well, I spent $380 for 10,000 of them. They mailed 10,000 of them. I only got 1 enrollment. If you spent $380 and they gave you $497 on day 1. Now, most of the people who are saying that are also, they're getting $119 down and $89 a month, right? So the math changes. But if I spent $380 and got $497 day 1, how often would I be willing to do that? As often as humanly possible, right? So does everybody follow the numbers? And so when it comes to working on online, ultimately, as you know these numbers, and the $5 per click can either be pay per click, or it can be a computation of your time, right? So if I'm running a school that's $1 million a year school, 50 weeks a year, I need what? 20,000 a week. 40 hours a week, I need $500 an hour. So your personal time has to be worth $500 an hour. So if you spend 10 hours on blogging a month, that's $5,000 of your time. If you got a lot of clicks because of that, it's worth it. Have to be it would have to be 1,000 clicks, right? But if you didn't get that many clicks with that much time, you'd be better off to buy clicks, right? So you've got to recognize, and a lot of those things are things you can outsource. So you can get somebody in the Philippines or in India or whatever, and let them do it, and you're paying them $3 an hour, $4 an hour, and they'll be fine. Is that good though? Does everybody understand that math? Now, let's go back and let's say that I've got a $5 a click, 20% conversion, and 20% here. That means I've got 80% that I haven't converted yet. Everybody's good with that so far? Okay. Now the question is, what do I do with them? And so let's again say, let's pick a number. I managed to get 1,000 clicks this month, and I've got 200 that are at the point of opt-in, but haven't made an appointment. I have 40 that have made an appointment, and I have 160 that are opt-ins but not appointments. Is that right? Is that the number? I think that's right. So I've got 160. Now let's talk about direct mail. How much would I be willing to spend ultimately to get an enrollment? Well, we just said if the value is high, $1,000, but certainly I'd be willing to spend up to 100% of what they give me the first month. Nobody gets squeamish about that, right? If they give you $300, you'd be willing to spend $300 to get them to come give you $300, knowing they're going to pay $200 a month for a long time. Is everybody good with that? Okay. So now I have these 160 people, and I want to start doing direct mail to them. Now, let's talk about principles of direct mail. You'll hear a lot of the marketing guys say, and this is useful to write it down, but they'll say copy is king. In other words, all the words on the page and how articulate it is and how exciting it is and whether it's engaging, they'll say that's king. And at some level, they're right, but it's really in 4th or 5th place. So write this down. It's really important. The first most important thing with direct mail is getting them to pay attention to begin with. Because what happens with most direct mail, when you come to my house, you'll see the driveway is pretty long. The mailbox is at one end. I pull in the Porsche, driving with my left knee, sorting the mail as I pull into the driveway, or if the kids are in the car, sitting out by the mailbox with my daughter bitching at me about, sitting there going through it. But I sort it into the throwaway pile, look at it pile, and 80% of it never gets into the house. Now, that's not unusual, is it? Right? And so I was passing this stuff around. The first thing is getting them to look at and get it to open. This is an envelope. You can put into the mail, you can put a bank bag with a letter, 8-page sales letter, in the bank bag. Into the mail is $2.70. Now, how many people are going to throw that away before it gets in the house? Are they mostly going to open it, right? Where's that little plastic bottle? For about $2.70, you can mail this. You can roll up a letter, put the letter in the bottle. They put a label on the bottle. You open the bottle here, and the letter comes in the bottle. Do you think they're going to keep that and open that?
If they can.
Yeah, if they can figure out how to pull it off, right? But the other one we didn't bring, you can get a little trash can, like a little miniature trash can. put a sales letter in the trash can, tape the trash can closed, and mail them in the trash can. All of those three things I just showed you cost less than $3 into the mail. First class mail. Now, this, we just went and bought, 500 of them at Party City. What did we figure out? They were like 49 cents a piece? I mean, they were dirt cheap. So 49 cents a piece. And they went into the mail like this in an envelope with a squirt gun inside. Priority mail envelope. And so you pull it open, and there's this silly squirt gun in it, which makes it lumpy, and then there's a letter inside. I think most people are going to open that and take a look at that. Okay? And so let me give you a couple other examples. Take those catalogs that are floating around. These Oriental Trading catalogs, you guys get these? There's an enormous number of cheap junk that's intriguing, right? Now, for back to school, do you have a few people who've been gone for the summer? If you did an envelope and put a squirt gun in it, and the letter said, as you'll notice, I've enclosed a squirt gun, and I know you've been having a lot of fun playing for the summer, but now, as we all know, unfortunately, summer playtime is over, and it's time to get back into your program, and we've been missing you, but it's time to, you can keep going from there. Would that get their attention? And if you sent them a little postcard, or if you sent them a letter without that, what's the likelihood of them even paying attention to it, right? See, so now we've got these $1 million bills. You guys have seen me do that from time to time, but you can take a real dollar bill or you can take a $1 million bill, staple it to the top of a letter. We have a renewal letter, which you guys can all go see. Go to milehighblackbelt.com. It's online. But there's a letter, and I tell, I think, a pretty articulate story about getting all of our black belts together every year and polling them and asking if I can give you all the money back and take everything that you've learned back over the period of time. If I give you all the time back as well, would you take us up on the deal? How about if we gave you $100,000? How about if we gave you $250,000? How about if we give you $1 million? And so there's the letter that talks about that for the upgrade. This goes on, and by the way, I think these are maybe a dime a piece, not very much. You can order them in bulk. How much are they? I think it's 14 cents. 1,000 for $140 or something, maybe even less. But the letter is all about, as you can see, I've attached a $1 million bill. Why? Well, let me tell you the story, and then it just runs in the story. Why is that on there? To get them to pay attention to the damn letter, right? And you know in your mailbox, how much stuff do you get that you don't pay attention to, right? So when it comes to direct mail, who's got the boomerang? Hold the boomerang up. See, a boomerang is a good one. You put it in the envelope, and it's for time to come back, right? So you can build the whole story around. Boomerang is built to go out and come back, and it's time to come back. There's a little magnifying glass. We've been looking for you, right? But you can build a retention series of people who've been gone. But the thing is to get their attention. So when it comes to direct mail, number one is just get them to pay attention. And it's why direct mail is much more effective than email, right? I'm getting this avalanche of 100 emails a day. I spend all my time trying to craft the subject line to get you to look at it. But even if I get you to open it, it's very quickly, this is, boom, I'm on to the next thing, right? But if I get this big package in the mail from you, and it's got a squirt gun in it or something like that, they at least stop and go, what the hell is this, right? Because that's what you want. You want, what the hell is this? You want that reaction. Is that making sense? So, number one in direct mail is getting them to pay attention. Now, number two is the headline. Now, that can go in one of two ways. Something like this priority mail envelope, the headline really is what the letter says inside, and the purpose of something like the $1 million bill is to draw them into the headline to get them to start reading. Is that making sense to everybody? Okay. And it'll be, as you can see, I've attached a dollar bill. The reason I've attached a dollar bill is I wanted to talk to you about your finances, and I thought this would be a good way to talk to you about money and get your attention. So, you just tie into it, and then you put it on there. So the number one thing is get them to pay attention to begin with, which is to get the damn mail into their house and get them to open it, right? Number two is the headline to get them to actually read the thing. Is that making sense so far? Number 3 in terms of responsiveness is the offer. And then number 4 is like everything else, right? All the words and the copy and how articulate it was and how engaging it is and all that kind of stuff, right? And the thing that I haven't hit so far is all of this is dependent upon the quality of the list. Okay? So if you did like the Postal Service every door direct thing, which you literally can tell them, I want to hit that neighborhood over there, and they deliver your piece to every door direct for a very low postal rate. That's not a very targeted list. They can narrow it down enough nowadays that you can go get if it's the kids market, you can go get all the 3 and 4 car garage houses and the gated community with basketball hoops and tricycles in the driveway. I mean, you can kind of go drive the neighborhoods and figure out which ones you want. Or for adults, like in your case, you can hit this office, this condo building, this condo building, this condo building, and by the sort, mostly they're not going to be 75 and mostly they're going to be young professional adults. But unless you have a situation where you can hone in that way, that's not a very good list, right? But how about somebody who came to your site, clicked on your site, and was interested enough to give you their information? Is that a pretty good list? See, I mean, that's at least a warm list. The comparables to that is everybody who came in for a birthday party and was there with their friend and gave you all their information. Everybody who came in to a buddy day and gave you their information. Everybody who was in a gym teacher for the day at the local elementary school in a well-targeted elementary school. Everybody who came and talked to you at the movie theater and gave you information and really wanted some information. See, it's now taking it from a cold, untargeted list to a cold but targeted list to a warm and targeted list, right? And part of your goal with everything you're doing, but certainly with direct mail, is to get it to be as closely targeted and as warmed up as you can, right? Then once you get a good list, it's to expend a reasonable amount of money, but it's not about being cheap, right? So let me go back to these numbers. If I had 160 people, and these are the ones that haven't converted to an appointment yet, because I got 20% of them, I've got 80% of them left. So far, so good? Do you think that if you really went at them hard, maybe you could get another 20%? So maybe you could get another 32 in this case? Would that be reasonable? Okay. Well, and let me give you a scenario. So let's say that I spent $20 on them right away, and I hit like 6 pieces like I just showed you. And then over the next year, let's say I emailed to them 360 times. And let's say that I mailed to them twice a month. And let's say that I text messaged to them twice a month. And let's say that once a quarter with a big push, I put a live person on calling them. And every time I did a mail piece, I put a broadcast voicemail behind it. Now, do you think I could get 20%? So if I emailed to them 360 times or 600 times, if I text message to them twice or 3 times or 4 times a month, if I direct mail to them twice a month, and if I spent $20 on them in the first 30 days, do you think I could get 20%? I mean, does that sound reasonable? Yes. Right? Well, let's see if the numbers work out. So I spent $20. I'll make this legible in a minute. Then I mailed to them twice a month. So let's say I spent $1.50 a month times 12 months. So that's another $18. I did the broadcast voicemails. Toby, what's that going to cost me? Okay. So I voicemailed them 24 times. So I spent $2. Okay. I text messaged to them what are we going to say? 26 times. Let's make it a lot. How much is that? So it's trivial, but let's say it's another $2. Okay? So now I've spent $20, $38, $42. So if I spent $42 a lead and I got 20%, that's now $204. It cost me to get an enrollment. Would that be worth it? Right? I mean, no way on earth it wouldn't be worth it. So let's go back to the numbers. So if I had 160 leads, and I spent, and by the way, in order to spend $20, I could do a $3, $3, $3, and then I could spend $6.50 on a priority mail piece. Then and I've got what, $9, $15. I could do 4 postcards. That's $2. That's $9. That's $17.50. And I've got another 2 8-page letters. And that's only in the first month. Right? And then I can spend $1.50. In other words, a long letter and a postcard every month for 12 months. And then I can spend what we came up with on all the text messaging and everything. Everybody follow that, right? The email's free. The text messaging might as well be free. The broadcast voicemail might as well be free. Caught those numbers, right? But ultimately, if I get 10% of that 160, it cost me $400 to get an enrollment. If I got 5%, I'm at $800. And if I got 20%, I was at $200. Right? Now, is anybody coming anywhere near that kind of follow-up? No. Well, most schools follow up real aggressive. Most sharp schools who are making decent money follow up real well for 2 weeks and they forget they exist. And if they do a halfway decent job, they put them in a sequential autoresponder thing and they periodically get the monthly email, and that's about it. Is that a fair assessment? Right? See, but that doesn't work very well. And then you go, wow, I'm following up a lot. Why aren't I getting a better conversion rate? But see, this is the type of stuff that you can do. Now, how many of these things do you have to sit in the back of your office and put stamps on stuff? The answer is none. You can outsource 100% of it. And so, and part of it is stuff that you can batch. In other words, I start getting a lot of leads. And part of what we've been teaching people for a while now is the point of the summer in part is to go get 2,000 fresh leads. Because what do we want to do back to school? We want to do this kind of stuff, right? And even if you toned it down, you did mail them something like this, and mail them something like this, and mail them, an envelope with a squirt gun. What kind of response are you likely to get? Pretty good, wouldn't you say? I mean, shouldn't you at least be able to get 10% of them to make an appointment and get half of them to enroll? Does that make sense to everybody? So part of what we want to look at with direct mail, and where people get bogged down, is they say, oh my goodness, I saw these long letters and one thing or another, and I heard that these copywriter guys charge a fortune, and I could never do that. Well, one is that's not really what's most relevant. And 2 is you could do it. But 3 is it's more important to get them to pay attention to begin with. And then it's more important to suck them in with either the headline or a grabber. And then it's more important to have a compelling offer than the rest of that stuff. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's go to the other side about writing copy. Stand up if face-to-face you're really good at selling somebody on your program, in an introductory class or face-to-face. Stand up if you're really good at that. Okay? Well, that's almost everybody. Okay? Sit down. If you think you really suck at it and you couldn't explain articulately to anybody the value of martial arts, stand up. Well, I mean, there's a few that didn't stand up before, so that must be the case, right? If you're really good at one-on-one explaining the value of your martial arts classes, or in a small group setting, in other words, teaching an introductory class, if you're really good at explaining it, do you know how you get started? Just record that, have it transcribed. What is the transcription cost, Toby? $35, right? $35 you can transcribe. Yeah. Well, for $35, I was going to say you can record 2 or 3 intros and have it all transcribed, or record a sales presentation, or more importantly, just role play with a staff member and explain in a compelling, concise way what the value is of your program. Now you've got a really good start. Because see, what most martial artists become good at initially is really good at explaining the value of your program to other people, but then you think that you put it in front of a keyboard and you say, well, I'm not a writer. Baloney. It's the same skill. All you have to do is be good at explaining it, then you get somebody else to put it in writing. And by the way, this type of stuff, it could also be an audio CD. What's the audio CD of? You explaining how valuable your program is. It could even be the recording of you doing an intro, because I'll give you some examples. I mean, one of the old problems that NAPNA had for a while was having somebody like Joe Lewis trying to do a teaching series. And if you put him in front of a classroom environment, he was fabulous. You put him into a situation with a camera, talking to a camera. I'm the same way. I never do, I'm the only one talking to a camera. It's always, I'm talking to the audience, we have a camera running. Because we're all good at teaching. Sometimes we freeze up when we have a camera or a script, right? So all you have to do is get in front of live human beings, create a CD, you can mail them, create a DVD, you can mail them, transcribe it, and you have a letter. And if you want, take that transcription and give it to somebody who's just halfway fluent and tell them to clean it up a little bit. Don't let them clean it up a lot. Let them clean it up a little bit. Because if you give it to an English teacher, they'll try to make all the grammar perfect, and none of us talk with normal grammar, and you shouldn't write with normal grammar, with perfect grammar, right? It should sound like a real human being. You know what I'm saying? If it starts to sound like a technical journal, hell, if it sounds like something the government mailed you, that's not what you want, right? Is you want it to sound real. Does that help so far? So the first key with direct mail is a good list. The way you generate a good list is internal events, buying clicks on pay-per-click and so forth, doing search engine optimization, going to the fair, going to a carnival, going to a movie theater. I mean, there's an endless source of getting people to raise their hand a little bit, including all the ones, by the way, who made an appointment, who didn't show up, who showed up once and didn't enroll, no matter why they told you they weren't enrolled, short of their moving to Afghanistan, right?
Those are your warm leads.
Yeah, those are hot leads.
Yeah.
Those are hot leads. I mean, I came in, I took 2 introductory classes I didn't enroll right now, and the reason could be I can't afford it. Is that ever permanent? Not usually. You know, I came in, I'm all excited, and my wife's been out of a job for 3 months. Well, as soon as she gets a job and things, get steady, we're good. Grandma's in the hospital. That's that's going to turn itself around. The car just broke down. Whatever the reason is, they didn't enroll right now. In fact, it can be we're leaving out of town, going to Disney, and just don't have time to do it right now. Those are people we've got to follow up with extensively. Is that making sense to everybody? So going back to the direct mail, in all of our markets, we have the wishful thinking that every month we could do a certain target number of enrollments and do that every month, right? Does anybody doubt that it's harder to do that in July and December than most other months of the year? Now, it doesn't mean it can't be done. We've hit for our schools lots of records in July and August, okay? But it takes a different skill set, and arguably it's a little bit harder. But for all the markets, when is absolute peak? If you were to pick 3 months a year, when would be the time that you would expect we would peak enrollments? Okay, September. I heard September. January. Okay, I'll buy that. So September, January, and March. I always look at it this way. September, October, into early November is prime time. November 15th to January 1st is a little rough. January through June is all pretty fabulous, although it kind of peaks in January, peaks again mid-spring, and then you end up in May, June, you've got to be doing some kind of summer special, and then between June 15th and August 15th is either a dead zone or you have to change strategy. Is that a fair thing to say? So if that's true, one of the times that you should be doing this kind of blitz is when? Right the hell now, right? Because if it's the kids market, let's go back to it. If it's the kids market, if they go back in school on August 20th, and I know everybody's different, but I always back it back 2 weeks. And so if they go back to school August 20th, I want to hit 2 weeks before they go into school, 4 weeks after they're in school, and that's my prime target market. Does that make sense? With the adult market, I would just use that target as Labor Day. So Labor Day is coming up, what, on the 3rd of September? So you back it up 2 weeks. When's that? Right now. And then you push it forward for about 4 weeks, and that's prime season, right? So that's what you do, is you target that time period. And so now you've done all this time throughout the year generating leads. Now's the time to target it, right? Now, let me go back and translate. Is there anybody not keeping a good database of everybody you've interacted with? I mean, you really should have. And when I say database, it could be a stack of filled out pieces of paper, or it could be an Excel spreadsheet with their name, address, and phone number, or it could be a sophisticated contact management system or anything in between. But you need to have all those people who filled out a form at a movie theater, talked to you at a fair, came into a birthday party, came to an intro and didn't enroll, walked in the school and didn't enroll. Does everybody have that? If you don't have that, you've got to get really good at maintaining a database. The second thing is we almost all, and I've hit it already, almost all give up on leads way too early. Okay? Mrs. Jones brings her 7-year-old down to a birthday party in March. Kid loves it. They're already booked with a whole bunch of other activities. It may be that Mrs. Jones is going to be looking for something for Susie to do in September. And if you hit them really hard for 2 weeks, do outbound calls to them, all that stuff, give them guest passes, then drop them, what happens? Well, they're still going to do something in September. It just isn't you. They don't remember you anymore, right? People have a very short attention span. On the other hand, if you mailed them a whole bunch of stuff, and now Mrs. Jones has put it on the magnet on the refrigerator, you haven't heard a word from her. When you called her on the phone, she said, no, we're not interested, and hung up. And you emailed to them, and they started deleting and unsubscribed. But now September comes along, and you're still mailing to them and still following up. What happens? It's time to do it. And that's the way you have to think about this stuff, is so much of, especially the internal referral marketing, is you get the friend to come in because that's when the event is. They didn't come in because now's the time for them to start a new activity, right? And so you've got to be going back to them constantly year-round until it's the right time from the start of the activity. Questions so far? Does it make sense? Yes?
I do have a question. You talk about fairs and malls and
right.
all those types of things. And we've been doing those, but we have gotten like 6 leads per event. How do you get people to come over and give you their information?
We're going to spend a ton of time on that tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think up at the website we have pictures and videos and all that kind of stuff. But but we will spend a lot of time on that. And keep in mind that the goal isn't to get their information. The goal is at least to make an appointment, and if possible, make an appointment. You guys have been doing quite a few of those. What's recent results?
2 weekends ago, we had a children's health and wellbeing expo.
Right.
We were there for 3.5 hours, and we got
50 appointments.
more than that. I think we got 10 appointments in 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I think we got 50 or 60 in that time.
That's a little different results.
Yes.
Yes.
The show rate was about 60%.
Did everybody hear those numbers? So in 3 hours at a, what was it, Health and Wellness?
Children's Expo.
Children's Expo, 3 hours at a Children's Expo. In the first 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes made 10 appointments. In 3 hours, made 50 appointments, with a 60% show ratio showing up at the school. But of course, Australia is different.
We haven't got much to do there yet.
Yeah.
They're just bored.
No, we're really, Probably the national record on that is what Sasha Williams is doing in Fresno at our franchise there. Is they just rented an extra 2,000 square feet because they have so much damn intro traffic they couldn't accommodate it. Literally, we do our franchise trainings fall and spring, and we were out there and we were actually sitting around in a room like this, looking out it's the space they rented now, watching the windows, and every hour on the hour there was like 12, 15 people wandering in. It was that that kind of flow of intros, all from those type of things.
His first intros when we were there that weekend, he was having groups of 8 intros at a time with families. That's five families with 8 kids, and he had them booked every hour.
Yeah.
For like 4 sessions for the 3 days that we were there.
Yeah, they were booking 150 to 200 intros a month from things like that. But we'll go over how to get that to work tomorrow. Yes, sir.
Do you have a program that you like to use? You were talking about a database. Obviously, the one that you're going to use is the best one, but do you have one that you prefer to use in your schools?
They all suck and they all work. Depends upon what you're trying to accomplish. I don't think there's a perfect answer to that. We're using a program called Infusionsoft. You're probably familiar with it, which is complete pain in the ass because it's so damn sophisticated nobody can figure out how to use anything, but it'll do just about anything. On the other hand, for some of this stuff, I used to use for email Aweber, and now we have Aweber and something else that does text messaging and broadcast voicemail and email, and it works just fine. And I got to tell you, one of the most profitable schools I ever saw was Keith Hafner in Ann Arbor. He was clicking along doing 90,000 gross a month, 50, 55, 60 a month net, including his brother and his sons, 2 sons on payroll. I mean, it was just all net. And he didn't really know how to use an Excel spreadsheet very well, right? I mean, and he was, doing great database marketing, but didn't know how to do it very well. What you don't want to do is get so enamored with computers that's the end all and be all. At your level of sophistication, probably the things you can do with Infusion with a couple of plugins, and there's a plugin you can do automated direct mail, there's a plugin you can do automated text messages, is the way to go. For anybody who's not as sophisticated as you are, they may be pulling their hair out. So.
Aweber now pretty easily too, so you can integrate all that stuff with Aweber, which is like $19 a month.
Yeah.
Whereas Infusion is $600. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of the.
And by the way, I'm going to go over all that tomorrow anyway.
We're going to go over all that.
Stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, you do have to be careful. And I'm as techie as you get, and I have this mistake a lot. You have to be careful not to try to kill a gnat with a sledgehammer, right? And so sometimes the simple tool that's easy to use is the best tool. So you do have to guard against that, right?
As long as you have your numbers. You see that it's the numbers. It's not how you get the numbers that are important. Once you have those numbers and those percentages, the first thing I ask our franchises when I talk to them on every call is, I need to know what their numbers are. If they don't even know their numbers, then it's hard for me to help them. Now, of course, if I'm in the school and I watch them, I can pick up things that they're doing wrong. But the best way to analyze what your performance levels are all across the board, starting from this stuff all the way down to retention, is your stats. And, I guarantee you 99% of schools in the country, martial arts schools, do not do adequate stats.
Yeah.
And
including
so,
their web traffic conversion, their conversion of leads, all of that kind of stuff.
And 90% of them, I might even say 99, are not marketing. If you see the way that Master Oliver is doing this marketing,
99.5.
The difference between this type of marketing is we're actually marketing like a real business, because that's what real businesses do. This stuff we're probably 10% of what some of the big companies do, because they have a bigger budget to throw a lot more at it. But with what we're making and what we're investing, this type of marketing is a steal. I mean, it's a matter of doing it. And I guarantee you, 99% of the schools out there that are having trouble with their gross or not happy with where they want to be, it's not because they're not teaching good martial arts. It's not because they're not giving those students their real interest and love of the art. It's because they won't get their butt out of their school and go out and market. They think the marketing is, I throw an ad in a paper. They think marketing is putting a flyer on something. But you have to realize that more than 50% of your business is this. The other is at your school. And when you're at your school, those things happen automatically. You don't even have to do any homework for that. You know, you guys have graduated from that because you know that in martial arts, we talk about balance. Your life has to be in balance, the yin and the yang. But I guarantee you, there's maybe on one hand, you can count the schools in here that are on balance. And what I mean by balance, you're a 5th degree or higher in martial arts, so a lot of years of training, and think how many hours you put in, how much sweat you put in to develop that expertise in your martial arts training to kick as well as you do or teach as well as you do. Then go over on the other side of that seesaw or that scale and put how many business hours that you have spent in learning marketing and learning how to run the business side of your school, and see if your school is in balance. Because if it's not, even if you're doing all the business is like this and you're not, and you don't have the martial arts training, you're not going to be successful anyway. And then again, some schools are successful and they're out of balance. It's just, it floors us sometimes, Master Oliver and I, when some of the grosses schools are doing, we're going like, wow, can you imagine that market they're in? If they're doing that with what they're doing on the marketing side of their
Crystal
school,
said we were on the way to the
we're
airport.
going like,
She said, I'm really impressed. We're almost at $1 million. We're doing everything wrong.
we used to say the magic mark was $100,000 a month for a school. And then we go in and we see some of the schools that are near that and how they're marketing it. It's like, no, 100,000 is not the ceiling. Schools can do, 200 and 300 a month. When we get into the profession, when we become a 8th degree or a master in marketing, because that's the problem. Most of us in here are masters of the martial arts. We're white belts in marketing. And until you bring your marketing up to match your martial arts training, you're still not going to maximize the potential of your school. Now, unfortunately, some of the schools, their maximum potential right now is very low. Other schools are in a higher bracket. But a lot of times when you're doing those high numbers, then you think you got it. You don't realize that there's that much more to do.
And as an example, in the room that I know of, take Casey, take Terry, take you. Some of the top 1% of instructors in the country, a whole bunch of people in the room fit into that 1%, right? I've never seen a better instructor, frankly, than you, Ernie Reyes, Steve LaValle. Those are in my 3 of the top 5 that I would know of. But the problem is you can be the best instructor ever. You can permeate the environment like Terry does and infect the students, but then if you want to take vacation, or if you get sick, or if a family member, has something you need to go to Iowa to help them, that's not systems driven. And so then it all starts to implode. So a lot of this is, one, it's the insurance to have the personality driven. In multi-schools, it's essential because they're not all going to be A triple plus players. They're not all going to be Tom Hopkins Jr. salespeople. We're developing systems. And the more you have tools like this, if I've dumped 22 good direct mail pieces, how good does the program director have to be at closing? It really should be, here's the price sheet, what do you want to do? Because they've been educated so much on the process, right? If I've put them through 30 minutes or an hour of video online before they've come in, or I've put them through a couple of hours of video before I ask them to renew, all the education's already done. It's just finalizing the deal. And again, you come from the multi-school environment where we're trying to create tools. In a big single school environment, oftentimes you can perpetuate all that stuff because you have a 1% personality. But if your personality isn't there for any period of time, then it all starts to go downhill. And this is the way to, and like in Chris's case, Chris, you're running an $80,000 a month school, but this is the way to get to 160. There's 2 things. It's getting better at the lead follow-up, and you got plenty of flow through the front door, but there's still a bunch of them that didn't enroll who will, and it's massively improving the leverage on the value, right? Just do those two things, and not all of it's net, because it's only going to be about 80% net doing this, right? We're only getting about a 5-to-1 return, but on the improving the revenue, you know, you spend an extra 5% per student, but 95% of it's net. Right.
And you hit on a good point too, Master Oliver. And we've had some of our schools that we finally showed them how to drive traffic. And all of a sudden, now they're getting the tidal wave of all these intros coming in. And now it's what I call the happy problems. They're going, how do I handle all these intros and not, you know, it's like they're trying to catch one and they're losing one.
Drinking out of a fire hose.
So what happens is they're losing the percentage, their percentages go down. Yeah. So, you know, part of this is not just getting, you know, when you get that fire hose finally pouring, you have to be ready to be able to catch them and know how to do that. That's part of that process. Yeah. But
Master
you know what
Smith, you might want to come up here so the camera is capturing both of us.
Well, that
you're going to be
too
just
much ugly on one picture.
It is true you and Jonathan would both be in the shot, but
but yeah. But you know, and that's the key. A lot of the schools that I work with, I see, you know, we finally, and one of the ways we finally got them getting the big numbers, we tried to explain it to them. We tried to let them watch us do it. The best way was to see it on a video. We started when we were at the movie theater, the way we decorated, the way we had the wheel, the way we approached them, the way we had the people posted out front, the way they greeted them, what they said to them there, what the second wave caught them as they went in, where they pointed them to our wheel. And they could see this on video. All of a sudden, these things that we were doing, you know, we call it the 20 things you have to do every month. And if you're not doing 20 things every month, you're probably not going to be hitting your market. Now, then what we do is try to improve the percentage of each of those. Well, how do you know which one needs the improvement if you don't have any stats? If you don't know that I talked to this many people to get this many leads, to get this many appointments, to get this many intros, to get this many to come to the second intro, and this many to get to the enrollment. Jonathan was a perfect case in Australia. You know, all of a sudden he had all these people coming in the first intro, and I was so impressed. But then all of a sudden, the second intro, they weren't showing up. Well, as long as we know those numbers, I don't care. We solve it. We go back, we take a look at that first intro. What is he doing differently in the first intro? Because we have another school, they might not get quite as many in that first intro, but they have 80% coming back for that second intro. So you see, you take them from point A to B to C. So once you have a system or a plan, but most people's system is run over here. We call it the plate spinners. Used to see those at the circus with all the sticks, and he spins the plate, and then he runs over. He goes down, he gets all these plates going, and then he's got to run down here and spin this one. Well, that's the way most people do their marketing.
Yeah.
They just keep jumping around so much, and they hope, you know, they use the, you know, the hope system.
Yeah. Let's go back to maybe specifically direct mail for a second here. I've given you a lot of content on this, but let's hone in on some of the important things. What I'm not talking about right now with direct mail is go to a cold list. What I am talking about is lead follow-up, right? And the lowest hanging fruit that I assume that everybody in the room has is you've done a mediocre or a poor job with people who've raised their hand a little bit. Is that a fair assumption? Okay. Certainly by the nature of what I've defined here, sending them text messaging and broadcast voicemail and a live person calling them repetitiously, and see what happens, even with a live call, is a lot of people, you have a stack of leads and you do 100 of them and you call 100 people, and everybody who said no, you throw them away.
That's because they're not interested and they don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah. There's an awful lot of reasons why somebody can say no on the phone, which doesn't mean they're not interested. May mean they're interested in September, they weren't interested in June. And it may mean that you got hold of the dad and mom makes the decision, right? It could be all number of things. But if you have that avalanche of follow-up, even if you only get 20%, we've seen how the numbers add up, right? And the leverage is tremendous. And again, you were asking about earlier how you invest the money. Part of the investing the money, obviously, is keeping away from the government legally, and part of it is putting it into other investments. But pretty much anything you're going to invest it in, you're not going to get a 500% or 600% or 1,000% return. And this kind of marketing gives you that 500, 600, 700% return just done properly. And, you know, I'll walk you through how to do it properly. So that's the first place, right? Now, don't get me wrong. You're always wanting to take money off the table from your business, right? Because you're not doing that and putting it somewhere where it's not at risk in your business, then it is, you know, it's not the right approach. But it is the first place where you're going to get a high leverage and high level return. But does everybody make sense? I mean, and we can go at direct mail tomorrow. We've got another segment tomorrow where we can focus on the general market, targeted list, response lists, things like that. I'll explain what all that stuff is. But really the first most important part, and 90% of the battle for you right now, is every time you go out and you get somebody either online or at a birthday party or at a fair or at a carnival or at a buddy day to give you contact information, getting really good at following up with them repetitiously on an ongoing basis.
Master Oliver said an important thing, and this is what we try to beat into our franchises too, is that if you go somewhere, you know, like, you know, we used to do hundreds of demonstrations, but we never collected contact information. Well, anytime you go do something like that, it's contact information, just like saying hello to somebody. That's about the response you're going to get. You might get a few, but when you know, the whole purpose of everything you do, no matter what kind of activity it is to collect their contact information. That is worth its weight in gold. And that's why when you get something on the internet, first thing they want to do, they're giving away something free. They want you to fill out your contact information. Now they have you in their system. They know they're going to beat you to death and hit you from every angle till they finally find that point in time where you're ready to become a buyer. Because everybody's going to buy something at some time during that year in a certain range. So they have a demographic where they know what your range of what you buy is based on age and different things like that.
On these letters that you're constantly sending,
Right.
do you have a template letter that you provide, or is it just something else down?
We have a bunch of it, and what we have up at the print-on-demand service right now is a lot of what I would define as short form. So it's everything from rack cards to color postcards and so forth. And we don't have a lot of longer form. The part of the rationale for that is the Muay Thai school is a little different in what the language is going to be from one of our franchises, a little different from the Krav school. And the two things you should really get good at anyway, and you know, occasionally I do that for somebody, but it's really something you should learn how to do yourself, is do the recording of you doing the presentation. Get somebody to clean it up just a little bit. The other thing that I didn't touch upon is you should always, constantly, never-endingly be capturing student feedback, in other words, testimonials. And I saw somebody here has one of those little, you've got a little digital camera there, somebody else has a little flip camera here. Who has the one with the nice microphones? Here, hold that one up. Of all of them, that's probably the best. That camera is maybe $200, but it's built for rock bands and stuff. So see the two mics? It's got the two mics that has great audio capture. The problem with all these flip cameras is the video's good, the audio's crappy. That one has great audio. And so all you have to do now is hold it up in students' faces and ask them questions about what the value of the program has been for them. And if I had 300 of those, guess what I can do now? I can transcribe them at $35 a transcribed hour, clean it up only a little bit. Usually we don't clean it up at all. Then I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of written testimonials, which, by the way, the students will almost never write it down. But they will talk to you, let you put a camera in their face, and let you ask them questions, right? So again, part of the key for your direct mail stuff is to have lots of your own testimonials. It's also something where it gets a little weird for us because legally it's hard for us to give Carol's testimonial for your students or vice versa because they're talking about a whole different program, right?
Testimonials I have, it's just taking it from point A to point B to point C where they're linking and adding.
Right.
You just need an outline of what
You're not
Yeah.
making it repetitive,
Right.
but you want to add to it where
Yeah.
you push them closer to that closing.
I will tell you, and again, don't make it too complicated. You know, a lot of the direct response copywriters they'll make it sound really complicated, but I don't mind having a 2-page cover letter with 200 pages of testimonials that I mail to somebody. When we do a big renewal blitz, we have them do what martial arts has done for me essay to get into the black belt prep cycle. And so we'll mail them the essays from 1998, from 2002, from 2004, from 2006, from 2009, from 2011, which is all a stack like this. And so they'll get priority mail envelopes of, thought you might enjoy this feedback from our graduating class from. And I mean, it's just overwhelming proof, right? So no matter how they might distrust what we're saying because we have a vested interest, this is just overwhelming in proof.
We also have a DVD that has all those testimonials on it.
Yeah.
That we capture out at our black belt testing because the parents are there watching the black belt testing. It's a whole weekend.
Put on DVDs
Yeah.
and send them out, but it's that
Yeah.
letter to go.
Well, and have them transcribed.
That's
Yeah.
the key right there.
Have
is
them
to get it
transcribed.
in their words.
Yeah. And but
And you
again,
don't have to use everything they say. You take the key things from this person, so that way you have a few examples. Because the idea when you're sending a letter to a certain person, based on their contact information that you collected, the kids, what the age is, whether it's for them, whether it's for the kids, and that kind of thing. And then you know to focus it towards a family, towards a younger child or a teen or an adult.
But so many times what you do is you overthink it and get bogged down, right? And you don't need to be like a world-class copywriter writing a 16-page letter for this stuff to work, right? And in fact, if you had 2,000 leads, if you mailed them 24 postcards over the next 12 months, I mean, that's a huge step. And each postcard is going to be maybe 50 cents in the mail. And all of that stuff is just done for you. Put your logo on it and add a personalized testimonial, right? And then the next thing might be sending them the CD with testimonials on it, then send them the DVD with testimonials on it, then send them a 2 or 3 page letter that has another 20 pages of testimonials. And all of that stuff is going to work. The hard part is getting them to open the envelope to begin with. And I already showed you how you do that. It's all about theater, right? It's about drama. So they open the mailbag or open the trash can or they open the clear envelope that has $1 million bill attached to the top on the top of it. And obviously you're not going to put a very long letter on that one, right? But it's all about that stuff. You can get clear envelopes, you can get bright red, shiny envelopes, you can get fake express mail envelopes. It's all of that kind of stuff in order to get them to pay attention to it, right? And the same thing goes in every context. So what we'll do at, like right now, and really have to go back a couple more weeks, if school goes back in session on August 20th, most of the school districts around the country, a couple weeks before that, the teachers are all in session. So they're doing in-service training, they're prepping for the school year, putting their lesson plans together, right? So we'll send FedEx letters to the elementary school, to the principal, a PE teacher, person in charge of after-school care. So the FedEx guy pulls up in the truck and walks it in. You know, you can do that 3-day fairly inexpensively, so we're not trying to get overnight because it's like right over there, right? But now the FedEx guy walks it in, they sign for it, guess what? They're going to read it, right? Where if I put a little postcard and mailed it to them, it doesn't work. Now, I did the FedEx to 20 elementary schools about doing a gym teacher for the day, let's say. How many of them are going to, in a hurry, grab the phone, pick up the phone, call me, and beg me to come down? Essentially, none of them. But that's not the mission of the FedEx package. The mission of the FedEx package is when a live human being walks in to talk to them, they recognize us, they already have a positive impression, and they're intrigued. And so it's kind of like they talked about the Gulf War, right? They sent in all the bombers. Well, the bombers didn't win the war. It just prep the battlefield for the next wave and the next wave, right?